Right, welcome back to our Super Slam set review. So, we're up to the Reviled section of cards for KO and Lyeth, featuring Booing and Might Generation, I think are some of the core mechanics. So, overall, these cards are definitely going to be a bit more aggressive, which is definitely a bit more up my alley than blocking out, right? Or planning to block out, or preparing to block out with toughness value. So, yeah, definitely a bit more excited for these cards than the Revered stuff, but nonetheless. Equipment-wise, Horns of the Despised. When this defends, the crowd boos you and Blade Break 1. So again, an on-demand trigger, right? So in this case for booing. So Might as Lyeth and Vigor as KO. And I think that's pretty crazy, right? The fact that you get to block out and stockpile a resource for your next turn, as long as your opponent doesn't, destroy it or steal it, that is definitely some really nice value. So both of the helmets, right, triggering a cheer or boot on demand is definitely really, really cool. As for the gloves, we have Mightybone Knuckles. Action, pay 3, destroy this and create 3 Might tokens. Activate this only if you have more life than each other hero. Go again, Blade Break 1. So, again, it's stocking up on X counter for your different aura counts and triggers, and it's also, in a sense, a +3 for your next turn, which is, I think, some of the highest value we see in our gloves, right? Usually, they cap out at 2. I mean, with Tyrannical Rex, you get a little bit more usage, potentially, over the course of a game, but still, being able to stockpile a +3 for your next turn, while also triggering some of those other cards, is definitely really, really nice. Now, Bully Tactics as our first Majestics, and this card to me seems just egregious, right? When it attacks a hero, you may pay up to 3, intimidate them that many times. So it can potentially be a 3 for 3 that strips 3 cards from your opponent's hand, which is just great, right? You can give it a +3 as KO's ability if you want the damage, or you can, use this in conjunction with some other good effects. So it's a great body for X effect because, again, it just clears your opponent's hand or clears the majority of your opponent's hand to, again, try and stack up a whole bunch of different stuff. I mean, it's a 0 cost, so you can Snapdragon Scalers it. As Lyeth, you can set up some other Guardian stuff to go with it. And as KO, you have your own Might generation and the ability to up its base. So, yeah. Definitely a really nice starting point for a lot of different plays. After that, we have Fix the Match. When this attacks, search your deck for a card, then shuffle and put on top of the deck. And whenever a card defends this clash with the defending hero, the winner creates a Might token. So, intended idea, probably fetch something big so that you win the clash. But realistic idea, it's a tutor. It's a tutor that allows you to fetch something, which is definitely really, really cool. So yeah, swing with it and get yourself whatever card you're looking for to then set up your next play even defensively if you really want, right? So yeah, it's definitely really, really solid having a tutor effect, especially with some hefty cost heroes, right? So you can find your blue if you want for Lyeth to use his ability, maybe Rampart of the Ram's Head, and then as KO, with a Vigor, then you've got your ability sorted as well. Now, for super rares, we have Battered, Beaten, and Broken, and to me, this kind of feels like it should have been the Majestic, right? This and Bully Tactics go hand in hand, and then maybe Fix the Match could have been a super rare, but still, nonetheless, when this attacks a hero, intimidate them, and then if you control 3 or more auras, this gets +3, and when this hits a hero, destroy an intimidated card they own. Now, one thing I will point out for the Reviled as compared to the Revered want 6 block, right? Now, there are other ways to get 6 block, but, generally speaking, the idea is to get toughness. Now, as Reviled, it's just any auras. So as long as you get to 3 auras, be it tokens, right, or stuff you've set up as Lyeth, you can trigger these cards, which is definitely really, really nice, right? So a +3 and then destroy and intimidate card on hit. So yeah, it can definitely be good disruption as long as you meet that criteria. Otherwise, still intimidating is still nice, right? You can mess up your opponent's turn if you hit the right card, right? The card they really want to block with, and at least make them rethink what decisions they have to make going into your attack, right? So yeah, really solid, super rare. Escalate Violence. When this attacks, if you control a Might token, create 3 more as a nice blue. So yeah, both Lyeth and KO will be looking for some blue, small stuff, right, that they can really utilize. But still, in a sense, again, if you do have that Might, you get 3 more. So it is above rate, which is definitely really, really nice, right? It's a nice, cool card to keep the Might going, but it could be a little bit more awkward, right? So, toughness doesn't trigger to your opponent's turn. So if you have a way to generate it on your opponent's turn, it's going to stick around. But in the case of Might, if you do generate it on your opponent's turn, it'll proc straight away. So you need to generate Might on the turn you actually play Escalate Violence in order to trigger it, unlike the other Revered card. Now, Gang Robbery. When this attacks a hero, still an aura token they control. If you control 3 or more auras, again, just checking any auras, not specifically Might, not specifically aura tokens, but any auras, this gets +3. So yeah, there are definitely a good number of targets to hit with this for certain matchups. Again, Fealty for Fang, Spectral Shields for Prism, X for Y, right? There's pretty comprehensive list nowadays of different tokens people can generate. So yeah, it is definitely a nice solid attack that is a small body for either Lithe or KO and has the ability to get a +3 on top of that, right? So that is definitely really nice, right? So a 4 for 9 is KO, or a 1 anyway for Lithe because it's halved and then rounded up, right? And then again, you get the +3, so it's a 4 and Lithe for 0. So yeah, really solid stat line on the card with a good effect. Now, the Old Switcheroo. Instant discard this next time you would clash with the target hero this turn. Instead, you reveal the top card from their deck, and they reveal the top card from your deck. If you win the clash, they discard a card. So, again, it helps if you take small and then force a clash, right? And if you don't have a clash to do, it's still a blue 3-block. So yeah, it counters clash, and there's no real downside to it, right? It's still a small body, it's still a blue. So yeah, it's definitely solid enough, right? You could probably sideboard it, take it into a matchup where you know your opponent will get a clash off. I don't necessarily know if it's worth taking for your clash effects, because then you have to line up 2 mechanics. But maybe there's some scenario where you have a way to find this with Fix a Match and draw it, potentially to use it straight away. I don't know, we'll have to see. Then rip up their virtues, destroy up to 3 toughness tokens, and create a might token for each token destroyed this way. Now, this is an instant, so you can use it on your opponent's turn to yoink their toughness before they get a chance to proc on your turn. And again, similar to the Revered, it's 2 value off of 1 trigger, and then anything above that is definitely really solid as a blue instant. Now, the first set of rares, right? So again, comes in red, blue, and yellow, but unlike usual, it doesn't go down in power since it starts at 1. It goes down in how much it gets plussed. But once again, as Lithe and KO, you want to start small so you can escalate and build it big. So Mocking Blow, when this attacks hero, if you have more life than them, the crowd boos you, and if you've been booed this turn, this gets +4. So as Lithe, right, again, being Guardian, being tanky, being, you can take fatigue, it is definitely, in my eyes, a bit easier to sit above your opponent than below them, right? Because in any match where you have these effects that, want you to be below your opponent, it becomes an awkward scenario where if you're winning, you can't really utilize them because then you have to manage your life, right? So that you sit a little bit under them, but not too much under them to give them back the advantage. So I definitely like the, if you have more life, a little bit more, even if they're in a sense kind of win more, right? Because you're already in the better position, so to speak. But yeah, so you get a boo off of it, and then if you've just been booed in your turn, it's a +4. So that is definitely a nice healthy stat line, right? Maybe not really enough to incentivize, for instance, using Lithe on your turn just as the boo trigger, but again, with some of those other boo synergies, it is a really scary card. Then we have Overturn the Results. If you would fail to win a clash revealing this, instead you win the clash and the crowd boos you. So you either win off of it or you don't win and you get a boo. So yeah, solid enough, right? Again, it just depends how much clash we end up taking in either KO or Lithe, being, a bit more smaller based. Now, Cheap Shot. Oh, God. I like the damage procs, right? Again, I do sort of wonder, right, if they could have been 1 damage base instead, but maybe that's not enough damage to pressure opponent to discard a card. But yeah, Cheap Shot. If you've been booed this turn, you may play this as though it's an instant. So again, as Lithe, easy enough to boo in your opponent's turn. KO, a little bit more harder, but still, it's the potential for this to deal 2 damage or force a card out of your opponent's hand. So in the late game, right, these sort of effects definitely offer up some level of scare to your opponent. They're sitting low enough, they just have to be weary of, potentially you getting off 1, if not 2 of these cards, and them not having enough cards to discard to get around the damage. So yeah, I do really like Cheap Shot, and of course the Charm for KO that does somewhat of a similar effect. Now, Sadistic Scowl. The next attack this turn gets +5 and Intimidate the target hero, all for 3 costs. So the question is this worth the 3 costs? And I think it is, right? So, if we go through the usual rate, 0 for +3, a 3 would be worth a +6. But you get Intimidate, right? Which I do kind of want to just value Intimidate as a straight 3 value, right? Because 1 less block card from your opponent, which is, significant. And again, there's always that random element of Intimidate where you hit the card that they really want to block with, forcing them to block with something they want to keep to play, right? So yeah, I do really like Sadistic Scowl, and I do think it's worth its cost. Plus, it just feeds into what Lithe and KO are doing, which is, taking a nice, strong pitch basis to make use of their own effects and effects like this. Next up, Arrogant Showboating. Create a might token for each defending card controlled by an opponent on the combat chain. So this is definitely UPF fun, right? But aside from that, it's still fun nonetheless. So for every card your opponent has blocked with, be it block, defense reaction, action card, or equipment, you get to generate a might token. So this can have some pretty crazy value on a really wide turn, not to mention then just being the card you hold that your opponent has to always consider. Is this a Cheap Shot? Is it a Razor Reflex? is it for whatever reason a pummel if you have the right attack for it, right? So yeah, just the ability to have this in your hand to then punish over blocking is really nice. Next, Concealed Object. So I'm glad to see a half decent, if not good, item, right? So Concealed Object, a nice 0 blue instant item. When this enters the arena, the crowd boos you, and then instant tap, target attack, it gets +1. At the beginning of your end phase, destroy this. So again, you get that on-demand boo trigger to not only synergize with your hero ability, but some of those other cards. And then you also get the ability to get a +1 off of this. So through the hero abilities alone, it's worth around 2 value, right? And it's a boo on demand for either your opponent's turn or your turn, which is definitely really, really nice in my eyes, right? So I think that definitely gets around the fact that it's an instant no block. So overall, I do really like that this is an instant item to make up for the fact that, you know, it doesn't have block. And I guess, again, it really plays the reviled nature, being able to pull out an item from nowhere, seemingly. Now, first up for the commons, we have Bask in Your Own Greatness. When this snacks, you may pay up to 3. Create that many Might tokens. So I do kind of feel this is better timing than the Revered one, just because it feels to me that you have a lot more usage of Might, a lot easier usage for Might, but it can still be a little bit awkward because, again, it's paying resources for that later turn. Still, nonetheless, there are a lot of stuff for us to do with Might, and overall Might feeds into, again, KO and Rathe really, really well. Clench the upper hand. When it attacks or defends, if you have more life than each other hero, the crowd boos you. So once again, it all depends on how much we need to rely on those auxiliary boo triggers. So yeah, it's still really nice because, again, it's a boo on defend or attack, right? So it's definitely functional. As a blue, it's a 0-2, which, you know, is a bit more relevant, again, to Rathe and KO. It's just whether or not the boo is worth the fact that, you know, only comes with 2 block. Now, Goon Battery and the whole Goon set of cards. So all of these are aura checks that then offer above stats, right? So yeah, a 0 for 4, again, where it's a +3 to help with KO and Rathe's ability. I feel like I'm saying that so much, but yeah, they are, to me, they're really, really cool, right? And they both do something similar in a different way and just seem really, really fun, right? So yeah, if you control 3 or more auras, again, any auras, this gets +3. And when this hits a hero, tap them, which is, you know, getting more and more relevant as we get more and more heroes that feature the tap design. As for Goon Beatdown, control 3 or more, +3. And then when this hits a hero, the crowd boos you, which is definitely really nice, right? Offering that little bit extra value. And then finally, Goon Tactics, control 3 or more, +3. And when this hits a hero, destroy the top card of their deck. So regardless of the actual on-hit effects, right? It's the fact that, again, with enough auras, which is Rathe, Guardian you can rely on, Suspense you can rely on, and as KO, just Might generation, Agility generation, other generation, bigger generation, right? Yeah, he does have a good access to a whole plethora of tokens. You can get these to be blue for attacks, which is just really, really nice, right? Instill Fear, coming in red, yellow, and blue. When the stats hero, intimidate them. So again, thinking about the blue, and maybe I should have just shown the blues, right? Being the bigger element for these 2 heroes. So as a blue, it would be a 0 for 1. That intimidates, then allowing you to build off of that, again, a little bit of disruption, to maybe turn into something really egregious. Now, Low Blow. So, if you've been booed this turn, this gets +3 as a 1 cost, so it is potentially a 1 for 6. And I want to compare it to Lion Strike, right? Because Lion Strike is a 2-card 7, potentially, a 2-card 5 go again, or a 2-card draw a card to Arsenal. Or, you know, give it go again through some other means. So it doesn't quite compare to the flexibility and the stat line, but I do think it is still really, really solid, right? Being a 1-cost potential 6, but then unlike in Lion Strike, allows you to float resources, because although Lion Strike allows you to do the 2-card play with a red, with a yellow, or a blue, right? You don't get the resources if it's a yellow or a blue, and again, as Rathe and KO, you will have a hefty amount of blue. So the ability to float 2 resources off of this and then still present something as a 1 for 6, I think is definitely really, really nice. Now, take that. When the combat chain closes, if this didn't hit, the defending hero creates a Might token. So again, our small swing bigs, but I do, once again, like these cards a little bit more in Rathe and KO, because they can take advantage of cards being behind Rathe, right? Because both their abilities feed into it. You know, if you have something a little bit smaller, it's still comparable to something a little bit bigger through Rathe's halve, and then as KO, the smaller it is to begin with, the bigger you can make it. So as a blue, it's a 0-3, right? That again, you can turn to a 6. You can add different stuff to it. You can incentivize your opponent to block it and then feign buffing it. There's just a lot of different outs and flexibility to these types of cards, these small cards that are really, really nice for the Reviled heroes. Then we have Boos, so a nice 3-block blue. Go again, when this enters or leaves the arena, crowd boos you, and at the start of your turn, destroy this, right? So again, 2 boo triggers is definitely really, really nice, as either Rathe or KO Once again, KO really astounds me because the vigor is just so nice, right? So a card like this, getting you those 2 resources over 2 turns is definitely really, really cool. Next, Cruel Ambition, a 0 red 2-block, create 3 might tokens and go again. So even though it's, limited stat line, right? It has a turn delay, so it's not quite comparable to our other 0 cost buffs. It still has a lot of synergy with a lot of different things that makes it kind of a really solid choice, right? Nonetheless, get 3 might tokens, turn on all your other aura checks, and then for the following turn, have a nice big +3. Next, Revolting Gesture, 1 cost +3, create a might token. Now, I don't know if this is worth it, right? Because it seems we have enough access to other facets of token generation that you don't really need the smaller stuff like this, but again, it can still be really nice, right? It's still a big plus to your smaller stuff as both Lyeth and KO, and that little bit of token synergy. Similarly, we have a Villainous Pose as a 2 cost +4, but with a boo trigger. So again, comes in yellow and blue as well, so you just drop down the buff. So it's a +3 for yellow and a +2 for red. So once again, you can think of it as above, right? Depending on how much you do value the crowd boos you, because it goes, again, through a lot of cards a lot further than just the token generation through either hero. And lastly, Disdainful Delight. While this is defending, if you've been booed this turn, this gets +1. So again, starts off as on-rate block, but if you have the boo trigger, then you get that little bit extra, and it becomes a really solid block, right? A nice 4 block. So as Lyeth, definitely really easy to accomplish. You just have to use your ability, except his ability doesn't return its block either, right? In the sense it doesn't get the +1 from his effect. So it will just be a 3 block, but then that's, again, on rate. So I think that's solid enough. Then as KO, it's just whether or not you have enough functional boos for your opponent's turn to take advantage of this, or you go full aggro, right? Taking your small stuff, banging with your hero ability and getting damage across. So overall, I do definitely really like the Reviled cohort of cards, mainly because I end up playing a lot more aggressive no matter what deck I make. Even if I make something, fatiguey, stally, I end up just going full aggressive because I don't really want to think about blocking. So the Reviled stuff is definitely right up my alley, right? But what about you? Do you like the Revered package or the Reviled stuff a little bit more? Either way, we'll leave there. Let me know what you think. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.